Our goal is to sort this array from least to greatest. So the first thing to understand with BubbleSort is there are things called passes. And after one pass, which is essentially one iteration through the whole array, the greatest number or the greatest element in that array will be sorted to the right. And then we can compare the rest of the elements in the second pass. So what I mean by that is, let's go through one pass, and I'll write first pass right here. And let's see what the result of our first pass is. So as I said, we compare the first two elements of the array, and we see which element is bigger. So we compare 3 and 2. 3 is greater than 2, and 3 is on the left. So we do a swap. So after we do a swap, we get 2, 3, and 1. And now we compare the next two elements in our array. The next two elements in our array are 3 and 1. 3 is greater than 1, so we do a swap. And we're left with 2, 1, and 3. So the result of our first pass is 2, 1, 3. And as you can see, 3 is the biggest number in this array, and it's arranged at the end where it's supposed to be. So now we can go to the second pass. And since 3 is in its in the position that it needs to be in, we can now only compare 2 and 1. So let's go to our second pass, and we have 2, 1, and 3. We compare the first two, 2 and 1, and we see that 2 is greater than 1. 2 is on the left, so we do a swap, and we get 1, 2, and 3. And we don't need to do the next two elements because 3 is already in its place. So our second pass, we get 1, 2, and 3. And that is essentially BubbleSort. Now let's look at the actual code in Swift Playgrounds for BubbleSort. So first we have a variable called swapped, and it's set to false. And then we have our array that is unsorted at first, that we are trying to sort from least to greatest. Then we have a variable called count, which is just set to array.count -1. And the reason for this is because arrays start at 0 and they end at array.count -1. And now we have a repeat while loop. And this repeat while loop is different from traditional while loop because while loops check the condition and then go through with the code. They run the code inside of them. However, with repeat while loops run the code within them first and then check the condition. So swapped is equal to false here. And we're saying that the repeat while loop will run as long as swapped is true. So how can this repeat while loop even be entered in the first place? The reason is because we go through this code here and then we check if swapped is true, and if swapped is true, then we run the repeat while loop again. So now let's actually look at the logic inside of this repeat while loop that makes a BubbleSort. So first we're setting swap to false, and then we have a loop that goes from 1 to count, which is array.count -1. And we have a constant that we set to a of I -1, which means I is going to be 1 in the first iteration. So essentially it's going to be a of 0, or the first element. And we have second equal to a of I, which I equals 1. So a of I is a of 1, or the second element. So then we're comparing the first and the second element in this line. And we're saying that if the first element is greater than the second element, then we swap. And after we swap, we set swap to equal to true. And this line right here is the reason that this repeat while loop will keep on running after this loop goes through all of its iterations. So now let's actually draw out a few of the iterations for this loop. So our first iteration, we are going to have first, which is our constant that we're setting in this line right here. And we set first equal to a of 0 because a of I minus 1, and I is going to equal 1 on the first iteration, so if 0. Second is going to equal a of 1, and a of 0 equals 7, and a of 1 equals 4. So we compare 7 and 4. 7 is greater than 4, so we swap, and we get 4, 7, 5, dot, 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 whatever, the rest of the elements in the array. To explain what this count minus equal 1 does, it essentially just decrements count by 1, but why are we doing this? After the first pass, we said that our result was 2, 1, 3. So 2, 1, 3 was the result of our first pass. And we saw that 3 was sorted into its correct position because 3 was the greatest number in the array. So now all we had to worry about in the second pass was 2 and 1. We just had to worry about 2 and 1 and sort 2 and 1 because 3 was already sorted. That's what this count minus equals 1 does, because count is what our loop is going to go to. It goes from 1 to count. So if we're decrementing count, that means that we have less elements to actually compare. And that is to maximize efficiency, because if we did not do that, then we would keep comparing elements that we already sorted, and that's just extra work for the program. So instead, if we can cut down the elements that we have to examine because they're already in their sorted positions, then we're maximizing the efficiency that BubbleSort can go to. So now let's run the code to see what happens. All right, now if we pulled our console up, now we can see that after the first pass, what happened was we have 4, 5, 3, 1, 7, 2, 6, and 8. 8 is sorted here. Now look at the pattern. 8, 7. 7 is sorted now. Right here, 6 is sorted now. Right here, 5 is sorted now. Right here, 4 is sorted. Right here, 3 is sorted.